Welcome everyone to Take30. We've put a poll up, and while we wait for attendees to log in, if you could take the poll, that would be terrific. And then we'll get started. Just on the answers to the poll, about a third are familiar with Matillion, and it's most folks are in the evaluating stage. Some are not sure they're going to be migrating, but the majority are in the evaluating stage. Matter of fact, very few have actually started migrating or fully migrated. So with that, I'm going to close down the poll and pass over the mic.
So welcome everybody for another session of Ironside Take30. And today's session, we have data movement and introduction to Matillion, cloud ELT tool. And today's agenda is kind of broken down into, like, I'll talk a little bit about Ironside background, Matillion basics, Matillion enterprise features, the cost model, and at last we'll have some time for question and answers. And my name is Dipankar Dasgupta, but also I have with me from Ironside, Jeff Spear, and from Matillion Expert, Aravan Gajajiva. And I'll have them introduce later as we progress into the slides. So this is one of the sessions with the data advisor. This is the second session here, and we already had one, and there are following sessions in the coming weeks as well. So who are we? Like Ironside, we are in business for over 20 years, and we are located in the Boston area, but we serve our clients all across the nation, and we help our clients use data to make better decisions about their business. And we take a holistic approach to any implementation. So we do have advisory services, both at the strategic and at the tactical level. We have deep experience in design, building, and deploying ETL, data warehousing, and data lakes, and as well as in data science and machine learning. We also have deep experience in implementing BI and reporting dashboards. We also have managed services, and one of the latest offering is an Ascend AI, which is data science as a platform. And the ones highlighted here in green are mostly with which we are going to talk about, which kind of Matillion plays our role with. And Ironside, as you can see, we have partnerships with some of the top in the industry. So here is a short list of those. And again, just a little bit about me. My name is Dipankar Dasgupta, and I'm with Ironside for the last 2 years. And these are my previous organizations as well. And I have 20 years experience, mostly in master data management, data quality, dimension modeling, in data warehousing, and various ETL tools. So last week we had a session on cloud data warehouse, and Jeff Spear did speak about that. And since he's in the call, I'll let him speak about this, where he spoke about Matillion as a tool.
Thanks, Dipankar. Yeah, this is just sort of a bridge from last week's talk, where we talked about cloud data warehousing in general. And so this was the sample cloud solution architecture we showed, and this would be sort of an ELT solution where you bring data into a compute engine, which in this case was Snowflake, and then you do the transformations with that same compute engine. That's a very common solution architecture in the cloud, because the compute engine you use for analytics is often equally usable for transformations. And so at Ironside, we always promote using a sort of consistent architecture with as few tools as possible. So you want to keep things sort of easy to understand and maintain. And so in this architecture, we were using the tool Matillion to do all of the steps, the loading, the extracting, and the transformation. So we think this is a great architecture. We think this is a great tool. So we're going to talk about it in more detail today.
All right. So, I mean, just to start off, what are the challenges that a business and an organization face on a day-to-day basis? Like, as you all know, data is in silos, in different applications, in different systems. data is also in a different nature, like there is variety of data in different structures. It's not uniform at all, which limits kind of good BI and reporting directly from the source. And there is right now in this age, the volume of the data is definitely a concern. So like that's one of the reasons now more than ever before, we kind of need a very good cloud warehousing and a good ELT, ETL tool for bringing the data in. So because of all these reasons, we feel Matillion one of the best products in the industry. And to talk about more, I'll hand it over to Matillion Expert, Arwan.
Thank you, Dipankar. Yeah, my name is Arwan Gatchadiva, Principal Solution Architect here at Matillion. I have over 20 years of experience in data and data technologies in general. I've been with Matillion for just coming up on 2 years now. Matillion was founded in the UK. I am based out of our US headquarter office in Denver. I think we can proceed to that next slide, if you don't mind, Dipankar.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks. So what you see here is your traditional analytics architecture, your BI architecture. You've got your data silos and your various data sources on the left. You've got your ETL server. So your typical BI architecture is ETL, database, reporting. So that's the three you're seeing on the right. Now, on an on-premise architecture, typically your ETL server is going to be doing the most of the workload, right? That's where all of your data transformations are happening, all of your core business logic. Your database layer, traditionally, is very specialized. Maybe your Teradata, your Oracles, things along those lines. But the challenge here in that on-prem architecture is really just that you're typically sizing it based upon your expected workload, maybe in the future. And there's an administrative overhead of administering the servers, your databases, maybe you're writing SQL to write reports. There's a lot of overhead in all of that, and it's very difficult to scale as your workloads need to scale. Now that transitions into the next slide where we talk about your cloud architecture, which helps to address some of these challenges that we see on that legacy architecture. In a cloud architecture, you still have your ETL, your cloud data warehouse, and your reporting layer. In a Matillion architecture where we subscribe to what we term ELT, your cloud data warehouse is doing all of the workload. And what's really unique about a cloud data warehouse as opposed to your traditional databases is your cloud data warehouse is elastic. You can scale it up and down based upon your storage needs, your compute needs, and it can be done very quickly and very easily. You do not need to provision resources based upon expected workloads. Scale up as your needs scale up. So you can start in the cloud very small and grow that workload as you continue to move more of your analytics workload into the cloud. And generally speaking, we're not going to be tied to a particular cloud provider. There's a lot out there. There's Amazon AWS, Microsoft Azure, Google Cloud Platform. All of those are excellent cloud platforms. There are various cloud data warehouses, Redshift, BigQuery, and Snowflake, that are supported in those various cloud platforms. Perhaps moving on to the next one.
All right. Yep. Thank you, Arwan. That was a good explanation on the differentiation on ETL versus ELT. So if you, as you saw in the last slide, Matillion basically comes in three flavors. Matillion for AWS Redshift, Matillion for Snowflake, and Matillion for Google BigQuery. So if you open Matillion, you'll see basically it's uniform. The UI across all the three are similar. There is no difference other than the platform that you are installing. And Matillion basically allows you to create two kinds of jobs. One is the orchestration, which is on the top half of your screen, and a transformation job, which is on the bottom lower half of the screen. So Matillion orchestration is generally for loading, unloading the data into tables or databases. It's sometimes called the staging area. And it also manages actually the dependencies, like calling another orchestration job or a transformation job. So it does mostly, you can say, the E and the L part of the ELT layer. Whereas the transformation, that's where your business logic resides. And that's where the heavy lifting of this, where you do all the transformations. And I mean, for like an ETL tool, I won't go into very specifics of, some of you are already aware of all the ETL features like data transformations that it allows, job scheduling, task management, version controlling, and all that. But I'll like to talk about a little bit about one of the features that Matillion provides. And as you know, from like the legacy ETL systems, there are like, once you complete a data pipeline, then only you can see kind of the results. But here with Matillion, if like, let's say you're joining two sources with a join transform, you click on the join transform and there you see like the data itself, like what is the data after the join, what is the total row count. So it's very nifty and handy feature, like it helps in development really good. And Matillion also has like a wide range of connectors with other legacy ETL tools. It's kind of license-based. It's, I think, over 70 different connectors, but it also gives you a general connectivity through the API where you can connect through those shared endpoints. With that, I'll again turn it back to R1 to talk about these Matillion features and enterprise features.
Thanks, Dipankar. Yeah, so as hopefully you're getting a sense of, we have different products for the cloud data warehouse being used. And you can kind of see that here. We are target specific, so Redshift, BigQuery, or Snowflake based upon the product being used. One of the advantages of that is that Matillion's going to be purpose built for that cloud data warehouse. Maybe you chose your cloud data warehouse platform for a specific reason, a specific feature that it has that is something that's very relevant for your business, something that you need. Well, Matillion is purpose built for those cloud data warehouses, and we're going to take advantage of all of those features that are available in that cloud data warehouse. You might look at Snowflake, for instance. We support Ultra Warehouse. That's the ability to elastically size up and down that warehouse to compute power of your Snowflake instance. We take advantage of things like table streams. Variant data types is another very powerful feature of Snowflake. Redshift, BigQuery, they all have their own unique features as well. We're not going to force you into any one, but what you need to know is that no matter what cloud data warehouse you choose, we're going to have a product for you, and the UI will be the same across the board. So Matillion is a full suite ETL product. All the features that you might expect as an enterprise, things like built-in integration. We do support an HA clustered architecture, data lineage for those that are interested in data governance, auto job documentation. All of these are great enterprise features, but hopefully these are things you would expect out of a tool. But the other thing just to mention here is that we do listen to our customers. We have a customer advisory board where we solicit those feature requests from our customers. We have a community and an exchange where you can vote for new features, and we're listening to that. We prioritize the features that we add based upon that customer feedback. Maybe go on to the next one again, Pankar. Thanks. So this all sounds great. Another good question that often comes up is, how do we price ourselves? What's really unique about Matillion is that what you're going to do is you're going to find us in your marketplaces in the different clouds, GCP, Azure, AWS. From there, you can subscribe to Matillion. You can see here you can subscribe to various different instance sizes. And we're not going to force you into a long-term contract. It is hourly. When you subscribe to Matillion, it'll take you about 5 to 10 minutes to go through those screens. But as an end result, you're going to actually launch a virtual machine into your cloud environment. And that's really important from a data security perspective, because all the data that goes through your Matillion environment stays in your cloud. Here at Matillion, we'll have no access to your data, nor to your Matillion environment. And we simply charge you per hour based upon that virtual machine being in a running state. We have a lot of customers that try to manage and mitigate their costs based upon stopping that VM running Matillion when they don't need it running. Maybe they just run it for a few hours overnight when they're running maybe batch processes. They're totally within your control, and something that a lot of our customers do. If you do find that you're running 24/7 and you are interested, we do have enterprise contracts where you pay upfront at a discounted rate and thus allowing you to save money, but we're not going to force you into that. Okay. Next slide, Dipankar. Great. So if you do have more interest in learning more about Matillion, I've got some contact information right here for one of my colleagues, Lisa. Happy to set up an hour review, a demo of the product, a little bit more in depth, answer any questions you might have. The other thing to note, and I neglected to mention that in the prior slide, but when you do launch Matillion from that cloud marketplace, you are going to be in a free trial. If you're going off AWS, you'll have a 2-week free trial of that. So during that first 2 weeks of using Matillion in your environment, it's free. After that 2 weeks, we transition into that hourly. So it's not like you have a trial instance and it goes away. It will still persist. It just transitions into that hourly model. And again, you can mitigate those costs based upon how I just mentioned. Okay. We can go on to the next slide.
All right. Yep. All right. Thank you, everyone. So that was, I guess, a lot of content for a short amount of time. So just to summarize, Matillion is a very high performance ETL tool. I definitely endorse it. And not only for the capabilities of the tool itself, but Matillion definitely has good support of their solution architects that you can get access to, which I did when I started with as well. And they're very helpful, very knowledgeable, and very quick to respond as well. So you are in good hands, definitely. And it also provides all the capabilities, as you have seen, for a true ETL tool. And its UI, very intuitive for simplicity. It is fast, as Erwan mentioned, that you can be up and running in minutes in your cloud environment. And like the migration just is very quick from development to production. And you can take advantage of the compute power of the underlying platform that you are in, whether it's AWS Redshift, Snowflake, or Google BigQuery. And last but not the least, obviously comes the savings, that because you're not tied to any long-term commitments, and with the pay-as-you-go model, you have a lot of savings. So in all, that's kind of what the Matillion tool is. And we'll have now for question and answers. But before that, I'd like to tell you about like the series that we are having. This is with the data advisors. There are a few interesting ones in the next few weeks as well, but there are with data science group, which is on Tuesdays, and with our BI analytics group, which is tomorrow and all Thursdays. So with that, we'll go over some question and answers.
So I'll ask the first question while people unmute, and then we can see what audio questions we have. Since Matillion is restricted to 3 platforms, how do we leverage it as a unified ETL tool where it can write data to Snowflake, S3, or RDS? Do you recommend it for a unified ETL?
Great question. So as I mentioned earlier, Matillion is target specific. So the idea here is to load your data into your cloud data warehouse. Perhaps it's Snowflake. So our Matillion for Snowflake product will have Snowflake as an endpoint. Now, with that said, in our AWS Snowflake product, once you've got your data in Snowflake, maybe you need to do some data aggregation, cleansing of it. Maybe your data is now ready to be, let's say, put into S3. Maybe that's your data lake. Maybe you want to also send that to RDS. We do actually have an S3 unload component, allowing you to unload data out of Snowflake back into S3 into a file format. Maybe Parquet, very common with data lakes. And we also have an RDS bulk output component that would also allow you to take data that's in Snowflake and output it into an RDS database table.
So the next question in chat is, can you help me understand how Matillion provides data governance using data lineage?
Yeah, no, that's another fantastic question. So data lineage is one of our enterprise features. And the distinction when I mention enterprise features is you noticed on the prior slide where we were talking about the different instance sizes. A large and an extra large and 2XL, they do support those enterprise features, including data lineage. Medium does not have those enterprise features. So as far as data lineage goes, what it is going to allow you to do is kind of see all of your data within the context of a transformation job, and maybe you're interested in a field that has had some business logic applied to it throughout your job. Well, with our data lineage capability, you're going to be able to graphically, through the UI, see what's happened to that field that you're interested in as it goes through that transformation. What is the logic around it? You can even see the SQL that represents anything that's happened to that field as it was transformed in your transformation job. We don't have today, but it is on our roadmap to actually expose that lineage information more programmatically. Today, it's available through the UI, allowing you to integrate with other tools such as like Calibras and things along those lines. We don't have that today. It is high up on our roadmap, though, so it should be coming soon.
And one more point I would like to add is like with the Matillion extra large instances and above, it provides a very good feature wherein you can have a documentation which also can help sometimes in finding out what is the data dependency and the column dependency and data lineage as well.
That's a good call out, Dipankar. That is very often very helpful, that auto job documentation. ETL documentation has always been a struggle everywhere I've been, having consistent documentation. The auto job documentation that Matillion will provide is a really good resource to share with your analytics users that maybe, or your data scientists that want to know what happened to their data before they got access to it. But it's also really good for sharing with maybe your other ETL developers from a technical knowledge, sharing as well. Yeah, good call out.
Okay, the next question is, are there plans for an Azure version?
So today we have in Azure, you can have Snowflake hosted in GCP, Azure, or AWS. For that reason, we actually have 3 different Snowflake products, one hosted in each of those cloud platforms, Azure, GCP, and AWS. Currently, we did just release for a product for Azure Synapse. That's Microsoft SQL Data Warehouse. They renamed it recently. That product is in the Azure Marketplace as well. It's in beta, though. So it's not yet full-fledged GA, but it was within the last couple of weeks that we just released it as a beta. So it's early release for some of our customers that are interested in that particular product as well.
Excellent. Yeah, I know we've done some work in that area and found it fairly easy to integrate. The next question is Matillion integrated with GitLab? Right?
Yeah, we did release a couple releases ago our inbuilt Git integration. And so with that, we do support GitHub, GitLab, and all your various Git platforms. That just allows you to have a local Git repo on your Matillion instance, as well as push it to a remote repo such as GitLab. And then you can then integrate that with like another Matillion instance. Maybe that's your dev to test production, your traditional SDLC workflow. It works perfectly fine. And yeah, and our Git integration works perfectly fine with GitLab as well.
Okay, I think we have time for one last question, which is, how does Matillion fit into an architecture that includes a data lake and a data warehouse?
Yeah, that's a really good question. That's a very common architecture that we see, right? Maybe you need to land all of your data into your data lake. Maybe that's where your data scientists live, your data engineers, and doing the curation of your data, maybe using some of those typical tools, your Sparks, your EMRs, and Hive, things like that. But now what you want to do is take that data that's in your data lake and expose it in your cloud data warehouse for your analytics users. It's more of your business critical data. Matillion works really well in that type of architecture. Now, you're not going to use Matillion per se to populate your data lake. It is targeted towards your cloud data warehouse, but your data lake as a source, it's kind of the bread and butter of Matillion, very easy to do, moving files around and using those different data files to load in your cloud data warehouse. But as I also mentioned earlier, if you want to take some of that data that now you've done something in your cloud data warehouse, maybe you've added some attribution to your data, maybe you've scored your customers, things along those lines, and you want to get that back in your data lake. That's where those things like that S3 unload that I was mentioning, one of our components, could be very beneficial, because now you can unload that data back out of your cloud data warehouse into your data lake. Again, maybe in that Parquet format that I mentioned earlier. It's just one of your more typical data formats for your data lakes. So that, it's a very complementary tool for that type of architecture.
See, we got one last question. The question is basically, when you're doing ELT and getting data in S3, is Parquet or CSV the preferred format? Asking because there are performance differences seen.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.